you guys. Appreciate you coming. So, my name is Anshay. Thank you so much for coming today. It's the first ever event Verbal+Visual has ever put on from an educational perspective, so we're happy to have you all here. We have a tremendous group of panelists and attendees here today, so we really appreciate your attendance. So welcome to Large Conversions, Small Screens. Today is all about mobile conversion and how we can take our e-commerce experiences and make them more efficient and just a better overall user experience online. I also want to thank, before we get into things, TechSpace, the office space that we're in right now. They graciously let us use the space today, so thanks to TechSpace. So as I mentioned, the focus today is really on mobile conversion. I want to introduce our panelists who have taken time out of their schedules to come be in attendance. Directly to my right is Jan Sorensen. He's the head of customer success at Nosto, an e-commerce add-on which delivers highly personalized e-commerce experiences for shoppers. They work with brands such as Lush Cosmetics, PuraVida Bracelets, and Fredericks of Hollywood. We have Nihal Mehta to his right. He's the founder and general partner of ENIAC Ventures. He's fully focused on the emerging adoption of mobile technologies for media partners and consumer brands. They work with brands such as AirBNB, Box, Trumaker, and my personal favorite, MeowChat. To his right, we have Jay Butty, who is the founder and CTO at Brand Project. They're a venture fund which partners with founders and companies to create products people love. They work with brands such as Nike, Lego, Colgate, and Virgin. And all the way on the right is Daniel. Daniel is the VP of Search Marketing at Direct Agents. They're focused on digital marketing solutions which achieve omni-channel results. They work with brands such as Samsung, Amazon, 16 Handles, and Serena and Lily. So welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. So what I want to start with is, what I want to start talking about today is, we're going to start with industry trends. What are industry trends that we're looking at that are dictating where we are now and where we're going to be going? So I'd like to start with Nihal. What are the mobile commerce trends that you've seen take shape over the years, and where do you see things headed?
Right now, okay, use mic. This week, what day is it? Wednesday. I think we've met like 25. You can drop F-bombs in here, right? Fucking bot companies. So, have you guys ever interacted with a bot? Bought anything using a bot interface? Raise your hands. No. Well, you will, I guess. You probably have used or heard of Operator or Magic. That was kind of the trend last year. Now brands are building their own bots. Next week probably is going to be the official launch of this kind of revolution from the consumer side. Facebook has, at F8, they're going to announce a bot store. So basically any brand or app can actually create, using low-level or high-level artificial intelligence, a chat bot over Messenger. So this has kind of been all the craze in China the past couple of years over Line and WeChat, where you can interact with any brand and buy things, and not only customer support, which we're seeing on Twitter, but actually transactions. And it's all mostly automated. So it's crazy. That's one trend that's like top of mind, because literally I met with like 30 companies this week.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what are some of the ways that you will be able to purchase? You had mentioned a few different ways that you can interact with the brands and make purchases. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the companies that we have now in our portfolio, like Airbnb and Uber, I think it's obviously you have a credit card that's stored, right, on the device, and you just hit a button and boom. I think it'll be very similar. Facebook's going to be asking for your creds, and then you just hit a button, whether it's your thumb on your iPhone or some other type of verification, and then off it goes.
Cool. That's interesting. So have any of you other panelists worked with a lot of touch verification on your e-commerce platforms that you've been working
on? Just answer the question.
we help clients. That's our big thing, right? So ours is about really. I mean, I wouldn't say too many of our advertisers are using touch yet or any of that, but it really is about simplification to to checkout, right? So we'll time your actual checkout, a lot of timing on the actual devices. We'll look at average rates, long load times, short load times. What my team, really looks at is search, organic search, as well as paid. And all these affect now your organic results, right? So that's what we're looking at. Google's always trying to deliver the best user experience, and those now get built into all the rankings that they do.
One of my portfolio companies works very closely with a lot of the big Fortune 500 retailer brands like Nordstrom, Target, Barney's department stores, one of the bigger ones that they've worked with in the last couple of years. And they've all seen the trend that a lot more of their traffic is coming from mobile. And initially they thought the right solution was just create a mobile app that people can browse and then hopefully they'll buy stuff. But what they've noticed as a trend is that people will go to the mobile app or go to the responsive website on mobile and play with it during the day, but then they'll go at night and buy something on their iPad or on their desktop. So they also know that they lose conversions through that flow because some people don't remember to go back and say, oh, well, let me buy that $500 purse or whatever handbag or whatever it might be. So a lot of them are really trying to think through, like, how do we make a universal payment system that's just one click wherever the user is? Because then, these department stores are starting to understand that most likely unless the user is like a loyalty member of Nordstrom or something like that, they're not going to go into the mobile app and put in their credentials and put in their credit card information and then click buy and then have to do all this. They almost want like a very simple one-click type of experience. So what we've seen the brands do nowadays is trying to figure out what is that solution. I've been looking at a lot of startups. One I'm looking at this week, for example, that's trying to solve that by saying, hey, we'll create this mechanism where, the brand only needs to install this one thing on their mobile device, and then people, if they have this app installed, will be able to purchase anything on that brand's website with one click, and we handle all the security and everything behind it. So I'm seeing a lot more apps that maybe don't go as advanced as what he's talking about over here. Maybe like, you tweet something and you get the purchase happen. It's just more like, hey, click this button and done, it's purchased.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, I don't know if has anyone heard of Klarna before? Anyone? So payment provider, where you can actually check out with just email and I think zip code. So they have essentially just removed the need to just add your credit card, all of these data points. And just to kind of follow up with your point as well, I think it's super important just to give options in kind of the checkout, kind of continue the purchase later, wherever that is. So I think email is going to be one of the big things that's going to be kind of becoming more important again. So as kind of that omni-channel tool that ties together the devices, I think that's one of the big ones. And then anything that can match the devices as well. So anything that can support logins and match those device IDs. But I think email definitely one of those that holds together the devices as a channel.
And what kind of adoption have you seen with this email platform? What was the name of it again?
That's called Klarna. It's actually also a startup from the Nordics, just came here. And they do all of the credit scoring for you, so you can check out super easily.
That's great. How do you spell that?
Klarna, K-L-A-R-N-A.
Very cool.
So pretty cool stuff.
Great. Has anybody in here implemented something like that? Just out of curiosity? No? Very cool stuff, though. Yeah. So, and you've seen a lot of adoption there so far, or not as much?
It's actually pretty popular in Europe. So
okay.
All the big sites have Klarna. They're moving in pretty aggressively into the US market. Have their own credit scoring agency running in the background. So we're not particularly affiliated with it, but it's a cool solution specifically for mobile. Yeah, I think that's one of the trends is to just disconnect the purchasing process from fulfillment and then actually paying. So I think that's one of the things.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I think cart abandonment, right, is a big issue, and email can definitely combat that. Two of our companies, Boxed and Trumaker, you mentioned, do that really well. So Boxed, where do you guys buy your toilet paper? If you don't buy from Boxed, you have to buy from Boxed after this. I'll give you a code, but BOXED. Bulk goods, so paper towels, toilet paper, Costco without the membership fee. And the big issue is people go and they drop things in the cart and they don't complete the sale, right? So then immediately after that week or however frequent the algorithm is, you'll get push emails and then just one click and boom, or discounts to make sure you convert. And I think that's very effective. What
about a user journey? I think that's really important too. User journey is now going from mobile to desktop to Instagram to everywhere to in-store. Can you talk a little bit about that and what are the trends that you guys are seeing? And there's Daniel, we had talked about that a few weeks ago, actually. If you want to jump in, what are the trends you're seeing in terms of user journey and checking out that way?
Yeah, so today it really is about choice to the consumer, right? I mean, if you're not in one device or one channel, you're actually ignoring that user, right? That person. They're going to find you or find whoever is a competitor, right, through whatever's easiest to them. So the world that we live in today is really about providing choice to the consumer and being where they're at. When we're tracking analytics, we're seeing multi-channel traction, basically going, like you're saying, we'll see going from Twitter, and then the next thing they're doing is they're searching for it, and then it always ends up in, let's say, direct or organic. So a lot of the attribution systems today always give a lot of weight to either organic or direct. But if you're to trace that back a little bit, right, or use anything else to look at how you're getting your customers, the discovery process is usually very, very upper funnel. And if you're only looking at that last click or anything like that, or thinking, is Twitter or Facebook a good medium for me to be using since I'm not seeing direct conversions from it, that really then becomes, it's an important question, right? Because if you can't measure it correctly, you won't really know where the users are today. And one thing we can tell you, there's probably average, depending on what kind of industry you're in, it could be anywhere from 3 minimum touch points up to 10, 20, for different, especially more if you're like automotive or something like that.
One of the things, I will speak for the big retailers, the big brands out there, the ones that you see in the malls and stuff like that. They like to call this like omni-channel marketing, where it's like, hey, no matter what the channel is or what the platform is, even offline, we want the message to be consistent. We want the experience to be consistent. That's like the marketer's dream for them, but they have had a very hard time implementing that. And the reason is that a lot of their e-commerce systems are a little bit older, outdated, or the platform they're using, the company they're using with, they don't make these updates that maybe a startup might be like, hey, let's innovate over here. So that's why you don't see these big retailers innovating as much, as quickly as some of these startups are, is because they just can't do it given the infrastructure they have. Like one retailer that we work with, they have 1.4 million SKUs. So they're selling 1.4 million things on their website. And when you think about the complexity of managing all those SKUs, managing all those products, and then any small change that you do on the site experience can have a big effect across the board, they just have a hard time managing the desktop experience. So imagine the omni-channel experience becomes a lot more challenging for them. So I think you'll see a lot more innovation happening in this type of, cross-device innovation happening with the younger companies before you see it happening with the retailers, or, it might take a long time before the retailers catch up to this over here. If I were to put my bet, I would say Nordstrom might have the best shot because they've been the one who's been the most cutting edge in terms of making investments in this space and also acquiring companies that could help them in this space.
Go ahead.
We have an investment we haven't announced yet, but it's in Palo Alto, and it's actually a physical store location called Beta, B8TA. And what they realized is that the future of storefronts is that they're just showrooms, essentially, right? That folks are buying elsewhere, online mostly, and that, the store is great to kind of browse. So they embrace that model, and what they do is they actually charge brands a SaaS fee, a monthly fee for actually shelf space. So it's kind of like the WeWork model or the text-based model for retail. And so the goal is actually right now all the brands in the store are all kind of like high-tech brands. So all IoT actually outlets in there, and they'll have, which is an amazing sock that saves babies' lives. It's like a baby monitor you put on a baby's foot. But all these like IoT brand. So you'll have Nest, you'll have Dropcam, you'll have Canary, and they'll all pay this store a couple $1,000 a month to have shelf space. And what they get in return is they get all these analytics. So there's beacons and there's cameras. So they can actually figure out, they can change their product marketing instantly and get instant response to like how long people are looking at it, where people are walking towards the store, and then of course transaction analytics as well. So they call it RaaS instead of SaaS, retail as a service.
Just to follow up here with Daniel as well, in terms of multi-channel, I think it's easy to be in multiple channels, but then really personalizing every touch point and having kind of a consistent experience for each individual user, I think that's super difficult, and that's where you're looking at marketing automation. because you cannot handle the analytics yourself. You can't set this up, the tracking and so on. So I think that's where you need to hand off the keys to some of the solutions out there, Nosto being one of them. But yeah, I think that's one of the points.
What about technology specifically around e-commerce? What are some different technology considerations to take into account when you're building an e-commerce site and optimizing it on mobile? It might be load time, it might be something else. I mean, what are the things that you guys are seeing that are really, really important to look at technology-wise?
Some of the companies that we're looking at are actually developing mobile first. So a lot of times when you build an e-commerce site, you look at desktop first as the platform. A lot of them now are thinking mobile first and forget about the desktop. There's a famous story that most of Facebook's traffic is now mobile, and when Mark Zuckerberg realized that mobile is going to be the future, he asked any product demo to be given to him in mobile and not desktop, just to get the entire company used to thinking in mobile. And I think that's also happening with a lot of new companies nowadays too, is that they're building for mobile first, because that is going to be the platform. And when we get to look at the analytics from a lot of big retailers, a lot of the CMOs, CEOs, when they get to the data and they look at how much of their traffic is mobile, they're like, we need to do something here. We need to, and that's only going to happen when they think on a mobile first strategy versus a mobile as a byproduct strategy that's complementary to tablet and desktop.
I mentioned the toilet paper company Box. They had mobile first for many years, for the first 2 years when they launched, and desktop is just like a side effect of just having a desktop site. But 99%, actually not that high, probably 90% of the transactions are on mobile. And latency is very important, right? So like Google says, if there's a search that takes more than 1 millisecond, they lose, I think, something like $100,000 of revenue for every millisecond or every second of additional. Yeah, it's crazy. And e-commerce is the same way. Things have to be super fast.
So what are the technologies you guys are seeing that make your site fast? I mean, we use Shopify Plus quite a bit, and it's been great. The speed is fantastic, and we definitely see that as an emerging trend in terms of e-commerce platforms for enterprise solution. What about you guys? What are the ones that you guys see?
This is like a plug of all our portfolio companies, but we invested in a company called NewMob, and it's like a mobile-first Akamai. So basically, any developer can put this SDK in their app, and it speeds up the app tremendously, the same way Akamai speeds up websites.
That's great. How about you, Jay?
I think same thing over here. But we do a lot of the brands we work with do custom development. So Shopify Plus, for example, might not be an option for them. So they do like, hey, what's the fastest hosting environment, AWS or Google App Engine? What's the fastest caching environment I can use over here? How can I reduce the page load times on certain mobile experiences? So it's really been, for them, it's really been using off-the-shelf technologies and then making sure they're hosted on a platform that can actually manage the scale or render things pretty quickly for them. But again, big brands haven't been as innovative, but they will be innovative, eventually. But if you want to do an experiment, go tonight and download apps from big retailers, and then download apps that are e-commerce apps from smaller startups, and see the experience, and you'll be surprised at how many big retailers have a hard time loading these pages or getting the experience that you want to render fast.
I mean, my perspective wouldn't be from choosing the technology, because usually as an agency, you work with what the client has. We dissect it from there, though, right? We're looking at if there's any kind of JavaScript rendering blocking. These usually will, basically add up your latency. Like you said, we'll time the checkout. We'll look to see if, if you're entering a telephone number, is it, on your mobile phone, is it coded into, to type up that keypad, or is it showing the entire screen with all the alphanumeric? I mean, just all sorts of things to make sure that it is a specific mobile experience. Responsive for sure. Responsive helps for SEO as well, right? Because if you have a mobile site that is dedicated to mobile, now you're managing 2 sites, so it's not really helping you there either. So all in the world of how it speaks to a consumer as well as Google, and there's a lot of different things to really optimize that flow. But and if it is a technology stand or a play, we usually will go to that last, because that really tells our advertiser to change a lot of things as well.
One last thing I would add on the technology side, a lot of people, and you've probably experienced this too, you have to build for iOS, and then you have to build for Android, and then for Android you might have to build for different types of Android versions. And that's something that when I talk to big brands who they say they need to be everywhere ubiquitously, same experience, and the developers like, we can't get the same experience on this version of Android versus this versus iOS. And that's been a big technology frustration that a lot of big brands have really been trying to solve. And I think anyone who solves that type of problem in a meaningful way will have a lot of business coming from not only big brands but also from startups, because OS fragmentation on the mobile is a big issue that is just getting worse, and the cost of maintaining and building platforms that support that is just getting higher and higher.
Cool. So also wanted to ask Daniel a follow-up. How are you kind of attracting the right users on mobile, the most highly targeted users on mobile using search? What are the points that you need to really make sure that you're hitting for your target audience?
We're talking search. So a lot of people create responsive sites, right? But no one creates mobile ads for some reason for those. Right? And we see we do a lot of audits and things like that. We never see just mobile ads. And if you create an ad, actually just even put the word mobile or that it's speaking to a mobile user in there, we've seen CTR, all right? So your click-through rate will jump up as much as 4 times, just speaking to a mobile user amongst many non-mobile ads. I mean, people are looking for that efficient experience, right? They're looking for the quick checkout, whatever it might be. And if you're already going to let them know that up front, I mean, CTR, I was actually pretty shocked when we ran those tests, and that itself speaks a lot.
That's great. And then Jan, you're working a lot with personalization. I'd love to hear when those users are coming to the site. What are the things that you guys are doing to really make sure that they stay and they keep coming back?
Yeah, so I think it's all about relevance. It's a small screen, so you want to use that as efficiently as possible. And that means just using as many data points as you can. So all of the contextual data points, so we can use, for example, the traffic source that you come in on to kind of pre-personalize the experience. We can use geo-targeting, right? So knowing a little bit about context, but then really just focusing on once you're inside the shop, once you have a couple of clicks, then we can personalize the whole experience. So that's usually what customers also come to Nosto to personalize it.
Have the rest of you done a lot of personalization work in the past, or not too much with your apps and your websites? Not too much? No? Okay. Another question I wanted to ask is, what are some of the easy ways, and this is really for all of you because analytics are so important, what are the ways that you guys analyze sites and apps? What are the technologies you use to do that, and how do you use that data going forward to improve your experiences?
Yeah, on mobile, there's obviously a whole host of different services. Mixpanel is very popular, obviously. Flurry, Localytics, which is one of our companies, people still use Google. We actually always take the logins of entrepreneurs that we're talking to, and Mixpanel, for example, is probably the most popular. And daily active users, monthly active users, the conversion funnel. So literally at every step of the flow, how many users are hitting the site, how many people are going to the shopping cart, how many people are transacting, looking at that very carefully. And then retention is very important. So we look at 30-day, 60-day, 90-day retention. And that's like generally the first ask, like the first pass, and we can get all of that from Mixpanel or Localytics if it's implemented well. I think that's been pretty much the standard for mobile development.
Besides Mixpanel, but like when we're looking to make an investment in a mobile company, the first thing we look at is the reviews that the mobile app has on the app stores, and kind of look at the downloads and the experiences, and then we try to find out how many people uninstalled the app, for example, or how many people what the variance is. So we actually, before we even go into the detail that he's talking about over here, we actually try to say, is this an app that people actually like? Or how are the apps getting their users? Are they using gamification? Are they using third-party services to try to get artificial downloads? Or are they getting these downloads organically through word of mouth, which is the best the best type of things? So a lot of the analytics that we do is more investigative research, just in terms of figuring out, is this a mobile app company that we find interesting and that we would want to that we as consumers would want to use over here.
Great. I'd love to hear also, what are if you had to put together a suite of tools, which obviously you're doing constantly, or what are the tools that you guys use, just going down the list, because I think it's really important for everybody here as well to know that, yes, they are using the best tools or they're using the correct tools for their platforms, I'd love to just hear from each of you because you're working on a lot of different platforms and in different capacities. I think that's what's really interesting about the panel. There's a lot of different areas that you guys are working in. So I think that'd be great to just kind of go down the road and hear what tool you guys use and enjoy.
I mean, ours is mostly for buying media, right? So we use a lot of different types of trading desks. We use, for search, we use Kenshu, BrightEdge. These are all enterprise tools that allow you to have a mobile component as well. Something like BrightEdge, which is an SEO tool, it has server proxies on a mobile phone, in different areas. So that way you can really get the feedback on, how you're doing in different areas. And I'm talking about search, right? So on Google. We do a little bit of App Store optimization, but mostly, the things that we do. Typically facing either on paid channels or on SEO. Other ones that we use, that anyone can use, let's say PageSpeed Insights, I would use that pretty heavily because you really want to know how Google and how others see your latency, which is really important to do.
From a marketing standpoint, we really like tools like Kenshu, and we use Marin as well too, from the paid search side. From the organic search side, SEO Moz is a great resource from the SEO world, and we use that quite frequently. Kissmetrics is another one that we look at quite closely as well too, as a tool that we use internally to gauge the effectiveness of mobile ads, and obviously Google Analytics, because even though I feel like they've not updated a lot in the last couple of years, it's still a standard bearer in terms of looking at we use it more to figure out what the blend is between people going to mobile versus desktop versus tablet, and then what operating system they're using. So for Google, for going into what platform they're using or what device they're using, we find Google Analytics to be actually pretty good to just give us that high-level summary over there.
That was the worst ringtone ever. Did you guys hear that? Right. I'm mostly probably on the sell side, not the buy side. I think, right? Yeah. So, Localytics, mParticle is actually an SDK that's starting to be really popular amongst mobile developers. The big issue with mobile dev is right now a developer will install up to 40 or 50 different SDKs, and it's totally it makes the code completely bloated. Oftentimes the SDKs are incompatible with each other, so you end up with these horrible user experiences. And so mParticle is trying to solve that problem. It's just one SDK that you install. And then you can actually go to a web-based dashboard and turn on and off your analytics, turn on and off your crash reporting, turn on and off your monetization. And so now, very large brands like Spotify, Disney, AirBNB are using mParticle to just keep it very simple, and then everything's in the cloud. And I think everything's moving in that direction because people just don't want a million different SDKs that might not, play nice with each other in their app.
So I'm also more on the sales side, but essentially I want to highlight a resource that I used instead of an app. It's called Baymart Institute. They come up with these usability studies, also on mobile, how to build a website that converts. And those are the resources we use on a daily basis almost when we talk to clients. So it's a great suggestion, I think.
It's great. Do any of you use Optimizely or any other A/B testing? I think that's also really important. How do you set up your A/B tests as well would be a great thing to chat about.
Yeah, from our perspective, some of our clients want to have kind of independent verification if Nosto works or not. So they would usually run it through Optimizely, Visual Website Optimizer. And then we just run either split tests or multivariate tests with different recommendation algorithms. So yeah, we use it almost on a daily basis as well.
That's great. And then is Nosto also doing email marketing as well?
We do email marketing. So we do, I think, triggered emails. I think that's where we want to be. So that's triggered off of behavior on site. So whether it's a abandoned cart or if you haven't been back to the site in 30 days, we would just trigger a personalized message to you. So I think that's where the direction is going. And we know essentially loads of bigger sites that are now moving away from just pure newsletters, and they're sending more triggered emails than the content-based emails.
Yeah, that's great. How about the rest of you guys? Are you doing any A/B testing and I would say intense transactional email setups? Because obviously that's important to make sure you keep with customers.
One of the companies that we're an investor in is called Freshly, which is a food delivery company for people trying to live a healthy lifestyle that's already prepared. And they're right in New York City. They raised a big round of capital last year. And one of the big things they're finding is more and more people are using their mobile native app just to try to do stuff. And so they're working very hard to build a mobile app for that experience. And email is a big part of it because they found that the more they engage with current customers and prospective new customers on email, the conversions go quite up. So like if they got someone to sign up via the mobile app to just the email list, even though they didn't sign up as a customer because they didn't want to go to the mobile app and say what 10 meals they want this week, because it's just a cumbersome experience on a small form factor, but they're able to get the person's email address. They have, and they email those people for 6 weeks, 1 email a week for 6 weeks, telling them about why Freshly might be right for them. They have a 15% conversion rate. And a couple of my other portfolio companies have saw that same type of conversion rate on email. So that's a very high conversion rate, and I've seen it across 2 or 3 different companies in my portfolio where the answer is simply mobile commerce. If you don't think that you'll be able to get that person on a checkout, try to get their email address. And when you get their email address, market to them for 6 weeks, and that usually results in a very high conversion rate over there. And that's one way to solve the mobile commerce issue, or bypass it for now with a solution through email.
I mean, as an agency, yeah, we do it all day pretty much. So tools would be Optimizely, Kensho, Google Analytics. We set up a lot of tests for that. But what we're seeing is, I mean, email is pretty much, the initial goal, I would say. If we're to look at lead gen versus e-com, lead gen, we can get conversion rates equal to desktop, if not higher, right? And your traffic on mobile today is higher than your traffic on desktop. So it's really important to cater to that mobile traffic, is what we're seeing across all advertisers. From there, though, right, what we're using these tools for, it really is about like email acquisition and getting that first touch, right? Especially if you're in e-com, because the checkout on mobile, the conversion rates tend to be a lot lower than desktop still. Right, they're climbing. We're seeing increases about 2 to 3x in conversion rate over the last year. So it is climbing by a good deal, but it's still under desktop by at least 50% in your conversion rate, right, across the board. So it's always a way to catch up, which really means the traffic is there, so we have to expand on the opportunity, but at the same time understand that they will bounce and maybe come back later on. They're just discovering at this moment. So email does become pretty important, and we'll test different ways of capturing that, right? One will be, of course, like let's say guest checkout, Facebook queuing in terms of that login, or just even seeing how that ties up to regular email. If an advertiser is, let's say, against that, at that point we're trying to cookie them. Right, so at a minimum, let's cookie them and use all the different remarketing channels we have. Google today allows you to remarket to any kind of email address as well, right? As long as you can cookie them, you can get into a Gmail account. So there's a lot of ways, if you cannot capture that email, to still have some kind of cookie or whatever might be identifier to capture that user still.
That sounds great.
Yeah, maybe one additional point also on email. I was talking about this earlier also, how it can connect the devices. So what you can do if you, let's say, abandon a cart on one device, you open that email on a different device, you can actually have that customer identifier in the email, and then once you click on anything inside the email, it will just essentially restore your cart on that device. It will restore your browsing history in the shop. But that's kind of the magic that we want to build.
That's great. When you guys are working with a new client or looking at a new investment, what's the number one thing you look for improving upon in what they're doing in the mobile space?
We recently invested, a year and a half ago, we invested in a company in Toronto called Ritual, which was 5 former Google engineers wanting to do a different type of e-commerce experience. And the thing that we got attracted to them is like 5 Google engineers who worked on Google mobile applications who knew what they were doing. And the founder had a previous exit, which was one of our portfolio companies previously. So when we look at investments in the mobile space, I don't just look at it like, hey, are they doing something that's going to do traditional e-commerce? I'm saying, are they going to do something that's going to create new types of e-commerce? So for Ritual, what they do is they basically, like, if you're in your office and you want to go downstairs to your deli and pick up a meal, but you don't want to go downstairs, order it, wait in line, and then pay and pick it up, you could just order that on your mobile app, go downstairs in 10 minutes, and it'll be ready for you, and you just pick it up and leave, and all the payment and everything is processed in the back end. That app, when they've tested it in the Toronto region, has had a tremendous stickiness. Any user who downloads the app uses it twice a week. So that created a whole new e-commerce experience, which is online to offline. So when I look at investments, I say, can you create a new type of e-commerce experience that doesn't exist today that actually but works with today's people's behavior to make life easier for them? And that's something that we get excited about, those types of mobile applications.
Yeah, just to build on that, I think it's important, especially as an investor, to skate where the puck is going to be, right? Does anybody have Amazon Alexa yet in their homes? Just one? What do you use it for?
Turning on my lights.
Yeah. So
Music at my Nest.
yeah.
It was a present.
So what's cool is you can download all of these hacks, and I forget what they call them actually. Not what's that? Yeah. And so now, like, I just got mine last week, and I'm actually noticing, like, it's creating a shopping list for me, mostly for the kitchen. And you know, you're out of orange juice, so Alexa, please add orange juice to the shopping list, and then it literally compiles the whole shopping list, and then it can go and now it's connected to my Boxed account, Boxed Express, and it's like, now go place the order, and like boom, the next day it's there. So I think that stuff is really powerful, and that was Amazon that was building it. Bezos had the foresight to do that, but I think you know, the one thing that you mentioned, really look for founders that have the foresight that this thing will be something massive that the market's going to go to. I mean, the fact that Alexa's been out for a year, I think this could be Amazon's next AWS, and only one person in the room has it. I think it's telling, because that means it's, you know, it's still very early.
Well, no, that sounds great. I mean, I'm looking forward to the day when you can use virtual reality, do your shopping experience, then a drone takes it and brings it to your house. That's going to be very cool. Well, thanks, guys. Does anybody else have any questions?
One thing I'll add, we've looked at a couple of mobile app companies that really haven't succeeded in this space yet, but the idea of almost like a virtual assistant where like everyone's busy nowadays, life is more busier. So if you say, hey, please find me a leather jacket that will look good in the fall, for example, right? And I want it to be this brand and blah, 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 but I don't have time to shop for it, and here's my sizing. And you have a mobile app that you can either type that into or speak it into, and then someone comes back to you and say, here's 4 options. Which one do you want? You say, I want that third one, and boom, that's all you have to do. They process the payment, they ship it to your house. I've seen a couple startups doing that. They just weren't able to make some of the things work economically on the back end logistics side or the economics, but I do think that someday someone's going to make an app that will fix all those things, where it'll become your assistant, where you could just basically be like, hey, can you please order Bounty paper towels for me, and have them at my house by tomorrow, and it'll order through this company this guy's an investor in called Boxed. But like that to me is something that I think someone's going to tackle and do it successfully. No one's been able to do it yet.
Yeah, instead of you going to the store is going to come to you. The drone's going to pick out a few things and bring it over to your house.
Actually, Operator is very scary like that. Operator.com. Yeah. It's one of Garrett's companies who started Uber, and it's basically, it's that. It's an assistant over messaging. You can ask it basically to get anything you want.
Really cool stuff, guys. I know we're getting a little off mobile, but what I want to do now is just